Welcome to the intimacy crisis and how it causes us to not understand what we read. What I'll be talking about today is the relationship between Sam and Frodo and why people, for some reason, seem to think that they must be gay. I have discussed this before, previously a few years ago, talking about the intimacy crisis, but I wanted to really dive in and show you different frames and different framing and tie all of this together with a bunch of other stuff. So stay till the end. So Sam and Frodo, when you read the story or even experience the story in a movie, their relationship should be quite clear. I think the problem is in the context when Tolkien grew up, it would have been quite clear. It would be less clear even during that time frame in the United States specifically. But the fact that this is true is just evidence of the procedural tyranny. The words on the page cannot convey the relationship correctly without the cultural context that you're in. In England, people had gardeners. Being a gardener was a relatively prestigious thing. The problem with Sam and Frodo from a more recent perspective, one where you're not in England and you don't understand gardeners and the prestige that you would have had in the community, we'll say, with the advantages you get out of such a relationship, we tend to try to put it in the frames that we're familiar with. Now, there's only a few frames that people are trying to use to understand the world right now. One of them is an economic frame. But there's no economic frame that makes the Sam and Frodo thing look reasonable because there's no contract. There's no employment as such happening in this relationship. There's no talk of money changing hands. And could you pay somebody enough to go to Mordor? Could you write a contract like, I will free you from lifelong prison to go to Mordor? Maybe, but that's not the case here. There doesn't seem to be an economic reason or way to reason about or economic rationalization for this journey that they're supposed to go on. Like for either of them, actually, right? There's no economic frame that will fit. It's not a political thing, right? Frodo isn't the ruler of his village or the mayor of Hobbiton or something. I mean, he's not in charge, democratically elected or not, right? Yet there's some set of prestige associated with his family, we'll say, but it's not clear what it is. So it doesn't appear to be a political thing. So why is Sam going on this mission? It's not a familial thing. They're not family. There's no push from like, oh, he's my brother or my cousin or whatever. That's not what's going on. And so these frames are just failing left, right, and center, right? So we're sort of like, what's left? Well, the thing is, it's not a romantic sort of thing, right? There isn't an overt love interest, we'll say. There's no affection. There's no like kissing. There's no like, I love you, right? And the thing is, they don't even appear to be, quote, friends per se. It's a very interesting, subservient relationship where Frodo is the master and Sam defers to that master as an authority because he's the gardener. And being a gardener has some prestige. Now, their friendship does develop over the course of the journey, as any friendship would. Like if you really want to know someone, go camping with them. It's a good rule of thumb for a weekend too, not for a day. These sorts of things are not evident in the story. And it's not as though there's some sort of community pressure here about Hobbiton or something immediately. Now, sure, there's an existential threat, we'll say, but that's hard to see. They never leave the Shire anyway. Like, who cares, right? But even that, without a political reason, why follow Frodo instead of just taking it on yourself? right? Like where is the drive? There isn't even a community pressure here. So what is going on? I mean, this sort of explains, we'll say immediately, uh, what it isn't, right? But this gardener thing and the fact that he knows the secret and is therefore in danger means he now has to continue to serve Frodo not as a gardener, but more as a squire to the knight. And it's interesting that people think that they must be gay and we're just not seeing the sex, right? Because they're inserting the only frame that they can into the story. So the question is, how does this tie to intimacy? So what I've done is I've just listed a bunch of frames and shown you why they don't work. So even the gay frame doesn't work because it doesn't appear to be any gay activity on the part of the two characters mentioned. Just like nothing like that is actually happening. So why insert that? Well, because it's a hidden thing, right? You can't deny it. You can't say, well, that's definitely not the case, right? You can deny the economic frame, the political frame, and the familial frame all day long. Like that's easy to do. I mean, it's clearly not there. But a hidden gay relationship, that's there. The reason why we have the confusion with these frames is because we don't understand the different qualities of relationships, intimacy, that are possible within the world. We don't see them anymore, or at least some of us don't. Some of us have no problem with this whatsoever. We sort of understand the master-servant relationship and why that would be beneficial. So let's look a little bit at the enchanted version of this, where we just take the book at face value instead of trying to reinterpret a text that we're too stupid to reinterpret. Actually, we didn't even read it correctly, right? For most of us. Sam is duty bound already to Frodo. He's already the gardener. And he's supposed to be under him as an act of cultivation. Sam sees Frodo as an intelligent, sophisticated person who's worthy of his support, irrespective of all other factors. Right? He gets to be bound to him, under him, and get cultivated in that process. So cultivating a garden helps you to cultivate yourself. That actually works in the world in which you and I exist when we're not on the computer. You can just start to grow a bean, grow some plants, plant some flowers, collect some seeds. You will grow as a person, I guarantee you. So the relationship between Sam and Frodo is an authoritative relationship of mutual benefit, where both parties are getting something valuable from the interaction. Someone's got to tend the garden and Frodo's too busy, right? Or he could do other things with his time that are better suited to his skills, whereas Sam's skills are perfectly suited to learning to grow the garden and cultivate the garden. So it's not a material value thing. There's no material value in there. It's just personal growth on both parts. Frodo can grow in a way where his time's not being taken up by the garden. Sam can grow in a way where his time is being taken up by the garden. This is a plus plus. It's a win-win. There's no losers in this equation. But there's no material value either. It's more of a growth. And we can argue about whether or not he was getting a stipend or whatever payment of some kind, but that wouldn't have been the point of the interaction. It would have been, as all currency transactions are, as all economics are, a facilitator of something else. Economics is a facilitation. Usually when people look at economics, it's all hindsight bias. All economics is hindsight bias. And what they're looking at is the facilitation, and then they're drawing the conclusion of what was facilitated. And that actually is very tricky and nearly impossible. This is why most economists are wrong. See Nassim Taleb, he writes a lot about this in his books, right? And you could read something like Freakonomics, the Freakonomics series of books, excellent stuff for how to, we'll say, properly look at economics, because there is a proper use for it. The thing about this relationship too is it's not merely at the level of, we'll say, person to person, right? Being the gardener for someone else gives you a place in society. This prevents domicide. So you remove domicide by having a place in the pre-existing order. If you don't have a place in pre-existing order because you're rebelling or because you just don't want to, or you're looking for infinite freedom or something, you're going to be in domicide and you're going to fall to nihilism eventually. That's a longer topic for a different video. You can also develop a competence, and that gives you a status. Like when you're incompetent, you're a child. You don't have any status. You haven't grown up yet. You're one of the lost boys. All right? So any competence in anything that you've been doing for a while, as conveyed by the approval of somebody who is already assumed to have competence, rightly or wrongly, doesn't actually matter, guys. Hate to break it to you. That actually matters. Like that's a conveyance of competence. Then you can use that competence to prove that you've grown up, for example, and maybe leverage that competence to move up the status hierarchy within the culture, or at least within the society that you're in, or at least within your community. Maybe only even in your family, but it's a good thing either way. So hopefully you can see how this stacks. All of those things stack. There's a lot of people that go to become a doctor because their mother wanted them to be a doctor, sort of a thing. That happens all the time. This is not an unusual event. And maybe that's the best driver for anything, is your immediate family. And sometimes it won't be, but that will be rarer than the inverse condition. So it's important to know these things, that there are these relationships that have qualities conveyed by all of these other factors. There's a person-to-person factor. What's best for the two persons involved, right? Well, it might be better for you not to have to cook and clean and keep the house so that you can focus on other things like going to work, fixing cars all day, or whatever it is. That might be better. In fact, I can tell you that's definitely better, right? 2 specializations is better than no specializations. And when you have to do 2 or 3 or 4 things all at once, which is impossible technically, you just water down your skill in all of them at once. Are there exceptions to this? Yes, they're rare and they're not you, so don't worry about them. That's the real problem, is that we don't recognize that there is a place, an ordered place, where things improve dramatically. If you want to improve things, if you want to have the win-win situation, which is quite possible, that happens within an order, a pre-existing order. Cooperating with the pre-existing but completely imperfect order. It's imperfect because people are imperfect, by the way, and people are the ones doing the ordering. Whether the order is pre-existent or not, it has to be implemented. It has to be given form and structure and time, energy, and attention to come to fruition. That part is at least imperfect. And therefore, the pre-existing imperfect order that you're going to be part of will be imperfect. But that doesn't mean there's not a win-win there. There certainly is. That's the way the win-win happens. When you're in alignment with order, you get the win-win. When you're not in alignment with order, you get the I win, you lose, or the lose-lose situation, which is even worse. And it's not clear immediately to you as a single person when that's the case, because you're a little stupid. That's just the way it is. We all have our blind spots, and we all have way more blind spots than we're willing to understand or admit to. Maybe than we can possibly understand, because the world is impossibly much larger than us. The world is at least as large as every unique person in it, plus as large as nature. I don't know how big that is, but it's way bigger than I can even imagine. Thank goodness for that. That's where all the miracles are. Without an understanding of the quality of the relationships that you're involved in at the person-to-person level, at the familial level, at the community level, you will never understand the world well enough to be able to be useful to it. And the world needs you to be better. And if you're better, the world gets better. That's how you make the world better. Hopefully, that straightens out some of this intimacy crisis confusion. Hopefully, I've made my point clear. Hopefully, you can see the undertones of the propositional tyranny and how once propositions are taken out of their cultural context, they break down, right? The communication breaks down. It doesn't have the richness and the fullness, and it can't convey the level of enchantment required anymore. I really appreciate your time, energy, and attention.